life lessons I learned as an athlete, and how you can use these to start to finally crush your goals. So, one of the things that I love obviously was playing basketball. And if you know me, that's one of the things that I use to kind of make these metaphors whenever I'm in sessions, when I'm doing podcasts, or even just in casual conversation. I feel like sports is a great like third or second language for a lot of people that you can use to actually communicate certain ideas. And that's what I do a lot in my therapy sessions. So growing up, basketball was very fun. It was exciting, but also it was something that unfortunately I wasn't really good at. And I love to give people context. If you've ever met me in person, you'll see that I'm very tall. So I'm about 6'4", right? So taller than your average person. And also something that maybe you didn't know is that I was actually pretty athletic. And I was so athletic that I actually made all state in high school for the track team for the long jump and the high jump. So not only was I tall, but I had the athletics to go with it, right? So you would think, man, this guy has a chance to maybe play D1 basketball, right? Maybe play some level of college basketball and kind of on a hope and a win, maybe even play professional basketball. But that wasn't the story of my life. The story of my life was one riddled with confidence issues. And these issues were so bad that it actually started to rob me of the fun and joy of playing basketball. I can even remember when we played our last game, it was a home game. We were in the third round of playoffs, and we were playing a school called Florence. And if you're from South Carolina, you know where that is. And I remember when that game ended and we lost. And mind you, guys, we were 21-3. So we were a really good basketball team. And I can remember when we lost that final game, I looked across and I saw a lot of my teammates crying and upset and things like that, just feeling really down. And a part of me was actually a little bit relieved. I was relieved because there's no more anxiety of missing shots from the court. There's no going to practice and running really hard and, being tired and exhausted and then having to do homework. That part of my life, it was over. And it was actually a little bit of a relief. But throughout that journey, there were a lot of things that I learned as an athlete. And I want to share those with you now because these are the same principles that I use for myself and for my clients. And I've seen them actually reach a lot of goals that they've been planning. So let's get into it. So one of the first things that I learned, and this came from really after I finished my basketball career, was that by not willing to fail, I was actually losing. Something that you have to do is you have to welcome failure as an athlete, but also as an individual, also as a person. By welcoming failure, you are also welcoming the chance of being very successful. But if you reject failure, if you have this fear of failure, one thing that you're going to welcome is regret. It's going to be the regret of not taking those first few steps, right? It's going to be the regret of missing out on an opportunity that you and I both know that you could have definitely accomplished and took advantage of. And that's really, really hard to look and see and feel, especially when that moment is passing, right? So here's the thing. Regret typically comes after the fact, right? Failure is something that's right there in your face. I can miss a free throw. I can get scored on, right? I used to hate that. And there's an instant pain point that you feel. But regret is something like a can that you can kick down the road and not really deal with it now. But the thing is, that can kind of like a snowball. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you look up one day and you're like, this is not the life that I planned. And that is something that is really, really tough for people to experience. Because here's the thing, life, and I can tell you this as an entrepreneur, but let's just say life is going to gradually get harder if you do not get better. Life will gradually get harder if you do not get better. All right. Now, if you're listening to this podcast and you're deep into entrepreneurship, you've seen some changes throughout entrepreneurship marketing that may be putting a little bit of a chokehold on your business, because I've definitely experienced this. One of these things is that a lot of social media platforms, especially X, formerly known as Twitter, is now offering subscription-based plans to help prevent ads, right? So social media ads. These are ads that you and I both depend on to get new clients, to get new customers. And now that's making it very, very hard. Even the cost of acquiring new clients have drastically risen, right? The competition, if you're not careful, the competition can definitely get bigger as well. And that's why it's so important to niche down, right? So like life is gradually getting harder, but if you have a coaching program, if you're studying entrepreneurship, if you're following the right strategies, things will get harder, but at the top, the competition will slowly start to drop off because you've kept improving. So I know that's just entrepreneurship. I could easily say that with, unfortunately, living expenses, right? Especially live here in South Florida with me, but across the nation, across the world, we've all seen prices of not just rent, but simple things like eggs. I mean, groceries for me and my wife and my son. I mean, well, my son he's just turned 1. Shout out to him. Today's his first birthday. But a while ago, before my son was here, I mean, me and my wife, so girlfriend at the time, we could get by on maybe like maybe $150 worth of groceries, right? And when I say get by, I mean for like a few weeks. Now, it feels like that may last us like a week and a half, right? So it's almost double. And that's why getting better, not being afraid of failing is just so important. Because when you don't have that fear of failure, you're going to be constantly learning and putting yourself in tough situations. And it's these tough situations that actually makes you someone, all right? Like a lot of people come to me because they're trying to avoid fear, avoid anxiety. And I'm like, no. We actually want to walk towards the anxiety. It has to be the right anxiety, but we definitely want to walk to it. And as we walk into it, we want to gradually increase it. I'm not telling you to jump into the deep end, but I'm saying we do want to start putting our toes in the pool and start getting to about waist level high. So what this means for you is that I need you to fail quickly so that you can outpace your competition who is still waiting on the sidelines. Because by getting real world experience, by improving your skill set, you will outpace and dominate them in every aspect of the game. And that game may be real estate, it may be entrepreneurship, it may be in your career if you're trying to go up the corporate ladder. If you're in sports, right? Obviously, being physically fit, even being confident on the court, you can do things that maybe the other competition cannot do. So I want you to go out there and fail quickly. Now, my second point comes from me when I was running track. So again, as I told you, I was all state in the high jump, the long jump, all region, like almost every award except state champion were things I were able to attain. And I actually attained these things just because I was naturally gifted as an athlete. But something interesting happened one day. So it was my 11th grade year. I remember we went to this track, it's called Lower Richland. We went there for upper state finals, right? Semifinals, if you will. Not the finals, but the semifinals. So this was the state qualifier to see who would run for state. And I remember going, and in the long jump, you have 3 jumps. I believe it's still 3 jumps. I remember going, running, and jumping into the pit, right? Doing my same routine and everything. And my score was pretty much average, right? The same mark that I got that day was marks that I was already getting each and every day up until that track meet. So, jumped in the pit, dust myself off, and then I got back in the line. And then when they called my name again, I did the same thing. Same routine, everything, jumped in the pit, did a little bit better, but I definitely wasn't ready to go to state, right? There's still a couple people doing a lot better than me. But on my third jump, right? I remember running and jumping into the pit, and the guy yelling out a number, he said 21 feet, 3 inches. And I was like, oh, cool, right? I just went a little bit further. So I didn't think anything of it, and I ran back to the tent just to enjoy some time with my friends before we had to go back to the school. And as I was sitting, my coach came to me. He's like, Philip, did you hear? I was like, what? He's like, bro, you made it to states. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah. Like out of all the competition, it may have been like 60 guys out there. I was part of the top 8 that made it states. And I didn't come in 8th. I made 6th, right? I was in the 6th best position heading into state. And that was amazing for me, guys. It was really life-changing. Now, here's the thing. When I went to state, I did the same routine and everything. But unfortunately, I did worse than the previous meet, right? I did worse than the marks that got me there. And what was funny about that was that I didn't know what I did to get my best record. I just ran out there and I jumped, and I saw that I did a little bit better. I was totally oblivious to the techniques. I was totally oblivious to what I did to get me to where I was. And because of that, I wasn't able to duplicate those results. If I was able to duplicate the results, I still would have lost, but I wouldn't have came in last. I would have probably came in like 5th or 6th, if you will, right? So just a little bit better. So what does this mean for you? Well, guys, I need you to be a student of the game. I need you guys to study the data points for everything that you do. Look at how much time it takes for you to go from a meeting to getting into the next task. That's something that me and my friend was just talking about. Because for me and him, we do a lot of individual work. And we also have businesses on the other side that we're also trying to run. And once we finish with the individual like meeting or session, we need to start timing ourselves and seeing how long does it take for me to get back into the work? Because if we're not careful, we'll look up and we've lost an hour. We've lost 2 hours, and now the opportunity is totally gone. For you, there may be something that you're trying to accomplish or something that you've already accomplished. I'm pretty sure there's things that you've been very successful at. And I need you to be able to recollect what was it that got you to be so successful. Maybe you had a coach. Maybe you had a certain morning routine that you followed. Maybe you were part of a course or a class or something like that. But at the end of the day, there was something that helped you to be successful with previous tasks. And I need you to find out what it was so that we can duplicate that. So not only can you hit those results again, but you can blow them out of the water. So be a student of the game. Don't just go through life wandering, right? Wanderless or whatever you say, wandering. I think I said that correctly. I need you guys to really be attentive, okay? Be mindful of what it is that you're doing and study your results. Just like athletes in a basketball game or a football game, they study the film. I need you to study the film on yourself. All right, point number 3, and I'm gonna take it back to my basketball career. So when I played basketball, guys, I'm not gonna be, gassing you up. Like, I really do mean this. Like, we had one of the best teams in the state of South Carolina. As I mentioned, we won 21 games and only lost 3. And one of those games that we lost, it was probably to one of the top 50 teams in the state. So they were really, really good. Some guys actually on that team went pro. So it was a good team that we had. And what was great about that team was that we had guys that had expert levels, like type of skill, right? We had guys that were really great three-point shooters. We had guys that were really great passers. We had lockdown defenders. We had very athletic guys on our teams. I had one guy on my team, his name was Red. He was the first guy that I seen in my age group be able to go and do a windmill, right? Like, we had a really great team. And what that did for us, it allowed me to not have to be great in order for us to win, in order for us to be successful. Because as I mentioned, something that I struggled with was my confidence. What does this mean for you, right? What am I trying to say? Well, if you have a good team around you, whether it's at home, whether it's in your office, whether it's on your team, whatever it is, it allows you to not have to be the expert in order to still see success. So what I need you to do is start to take the goals that you're trying to work on and ask yourself, what are the people that can help me to accomplish this goal quicker or even more efficiently, right? Or even just simply at all. These are the people that you need to actually ask and find out who is on your team. And if it requires you to pay them, guys, pay them. Because one thing that I've learned is that what is really expensive is being cheap. And another thing that's expensive is regret. So what I want you guys to do is start to find a team to circle around your goals and invite them to start to help you to collaborate on them so they can be more successful a lot quicker and a lot faster. All right, point number 4. So when I played basketball, even with track, I really didn't like practice. And I think that's the story of a lot of athletes. Practice is something that's grueling, it's boring, there's no instant gratification, right? Depending on who you ask. And practice kind of just seems like a mundane thing that you have to do in order to get to the game. And the game is where everybody wants to go, right? Like, I remember guys on my team who were actually pretty good. They didn't have a chance to play in all the games because we were just that deep. So what I used to do during practice was I just used to go through the motions. I didn't think about it too much. A lot of times I had stuff going on at home or stuff at school that was really, taking up a lot of brain space for me. So I wasn't really always totally there. Plus, I used to think, well, I may not get the ball in the game, so why should I practice as hard, right? Like, I used to have these negative thoughts. Well, I'm gonna miss a shot, or, the guys on my team, they're really good, so they can just take care of it. I wasn't aggressive. As a result, when the game came, guess what? I wasn't aggressive, right? I wasn't taking the shots. I wasn't making shots either. So what am I trying to say here? If you're in practice, and what I mean by practice is if you're reading a book, if you're working on a motivational speak, if you're working on a podcast, if you're working on some type of business plan, like whatever it is, I really need you to practice. And when it comes to the game, I really need you to perform in the game. In my previous podcast, I talked about performance anxiety. So if you have the practice skills, right? You're doing well in practice, you're able to do things like at level 10, but you fail when it comes to the big lights, when it comes to the big game, I want you to listen to that podcast because I'm going to help you to find ways to overcome that performance anxiety, okay? So when it comes to the game, make sure you're in the game. When it comes to practice, make sure that you're practicing. Something that Jordan said was that he played in practice harder than he played in the games. So when it came to the games, they felt easy. Kobe also said the same thing. He said, well, in a game, when it's 5 seconds left on the clock and we're down one and I'm giving the ball to take a shot to win the game, little do they know, but I've taken that shot thousands of times already in practice. So now it's just a formality when it's in the game. It's the same thing for you. Make sure that you're taking your practice serious. And then point number 5, this is the biggest one for me. Guys, my biggest regret as an athlete was not going out and finding a coach. I just simply went to practice, just like everybody else. But something that I noticed was that the really good players on my track team, right? So the fast runners, right? The ones that got D1 scholarships, the really good basketball players on my team, right? The ones that went D1, that played overseas, they also had coaches outside of practice. And they would go to them and work out with them sometimes right after practice. And I didn't think much of it, right? One, I thought, it's probably expensive, can't afford them, right? But two, I just didn't see the value in it. And that's how a lot of us are when it comes to our personal life, when it comes to our businesses, our careers, anything. Even if you just want to simply start working out again, I would tell you, find a coach, right? Because by having a coach, 2 things will happen. One, they're going to help you to increase your speed in attacking that goal. And 2, they're going to improve your accuracy in attacking that goal. So think of it like a bullseye, right? If you have a bullseye and you're shooting arrows at this bullseye, let's say you have a minute and you're only able to get 1 shot off, right? And it's accurate, but you only got 1 shot off. And let's look at the flip side of that. Let's say in 1 minute, you're able to shoot off 10 arrows, but none of them hits the board, right? It's a little bit, not efficient, if you will. And what I'm telling you is that a coach will help you with the accuracy, so make sure that you hit the bullseye, but also the speed, so that every time you hit the bullseye, so 10 arrows in that 1 minute, all 10 of them are hitting the bullseye. That's what we want as a coach. That is what we're paying for. So do not let something like, well, there's time or money get in the way of having a coach. And I'll even say this, if money really, really is tight, okay, I'll challenge you on that, but let's just say that it is. Some of these coaches, you can find them on Instagram, you can find them on YouTube, you can find them in a book. And it's gonna take a little bit of doing it yourself, if you will, right? But you can still find a coach in that manner to help you with whatever goal that you're trying to accomplish. And that's one of my biggest regrets as an athlete, not having a coach. So again, let me summarize these 5 main points that help me as an athlete, but also in my personal life. And again, these will help you to crush any goal that you set for yourself. So the first one, I just need you guys to fail quickly. Welcome failure, because by not doing that, you're gonna welcome something else that's a lot worse, and it's called regret. Second, be a student of the game and not a fan. I need you guys to really study the data points. Know why you're losing and know why you're failing. Next, make sure that you have a good team around you. By having a good team, it can overcompensate in some areas that you're not proficient in, so that way you can still have success without trying to be the grand master of all things, because a plan like that can take you 100 years to accomplish. You may only need to be great at a few things, and then you can hire a team, find a team to help you in the areas that you're not as efficient in. Point number 4, when it's time to practice, make sure that you practice, and when it's game time, make sure that you're in the game. Be intentional, guys. Do not let these opportunities, even practice, right? Do not let opportunities like practice slip you by. Take them serious, and you find yourself seriously being involved in the games. And then last, make sure that you hire a coach, because it's gonna help you increase your accuracy and your speed in accomplishing your goals. So with that being said, guys, thank you for checking out this podcast. This is Coach Wells, and I'll see you later.